How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tear Talk. Guys, great discussion today. We're going to talk about the Emmanuel Haro case, when parenthood is weaponized. Now, if you guys are not familiar with this story, a supposed kidnapping out of nowhere. One moment, a mother reporting her baby missing in a parking lot. The next, the parent themselves behind bars. On August 14th, Rebecca, let me show you guys some pictures here so you can see it. This is Rebecca and Jake. These are the parents of Emmanuel Haro. And this is Emmanuel Haro right here. Beautiful baby. So on August 14th, Rebecca Haro claimed her 7-month-old son, Emmanuel, had been abducted while she changed his diaper outside a Big 5 sporting goods in Yucaipa, California. She told investigators she was struck from behind, heard someone say hola, and awoke to find her baby gone. The story drew immediate sympathy and sparked a massive search effort. But within days, inconsistencies in her account began to unravel the narrative. Detectives seized surveillance footage, combed through the Haro residence with canine units and SWAT teams, and even impounded Jake Haro's vehicle. As the evidence mounted, the focus shifted from a stranger abduction to the family itself. On August 22nd, that's this morning, today, both Jake and Rebecca Haro were arrested in their home in Cabazon and charged with murder. Authorities now believe Emmanuel is deceased, though his body has not yet been recovered, and the search for him continues. The case has hit the community hard. Vigils have formed outside the family's home. Tensions have flared, and reports of threats have circulated. Adding to the outrage, Jake Haro. So Jake Haro is seen here next to his wife. Jake Haro's prior conviction for child cruelty in 2018 resurfaced, fueling questions about how this tragedy could have been prevented. What began as a story of victimhood has become a painful reminder of betrayal, when those entrusted to protect a child become the very suspects in his disappearance. This is the heartbreaking case of Emmanuel Haro, and tonight we're going to break down, and I think this is key, the Emmanuel Haro case, when parenthood is weaponized. What up, Russ?
Good evening, Anthony. How's it going?
Good. I thought we could run through a few things that I know are not being covered. Everyone's focused now on the escape and possibly the murder charges that these parents could be facing, because right now they believe this could be a homicide. But what I would like to do, because we kind of focus on what's behind the mask, I thought we could focus on when parenthood is being weaponized, when the title of mom or dad gets weaponized. But what I want to focus on today is more on the mom's side. I want to focus more on the mother a little bit. But with that said, Russ, do you mind introducing yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Russ Hamilton. I'm a former and now retired sergeant from California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I'm also a former senior juvenile correctional officer. I currently work for a company that does reentry and rehabilitation work for a local county jail and a local county probation department. I am also the founder of Keepers of Chaos, and that's Chaos with a K on Facebook. And in addition to that, I am a new author with a book out called Killing Complacency, Tactical Awareness for Correctional Professionals. And so that book is now out on Amazon, ready for purchase in 2 formats. One is the ebook format from Kindle, and the other is the basic paperback edition.
Yes. And guys, if you get a chance, I also have books on the market too. The big seller I have is Inmate Manipulation Decoded. That's available on Amazon. But I also do like Breaking Boundaries. It's about undue familiarity, when we cross the line, or when the line, when the inmate starts playing the game before we even cross the line. That book more focuses on the development of the relationship. All right, Russ. So, Russ, are you familiar with this case at all?
No, not really. I've heard a couple of news blurbs about it, and that's really about it.
Now you're in California, correct? Are you these 2 areas here in California? Do you know of those 2 areas?
Yeah, they're both down. They're down in Southern California. It's Yucaipa And what's the other one? I think is it? It's not Castaic. It's Cabazon or something like that.
Amazon, yes.
Yeah, those are both down in Southern California.
All right. So basically, Russ, I wrote a couple of notes here. So again, we're going to focus on just when parenthood is weaponized. So when a parent harms their child, the shockwaves are different than almost any other crime. And you even see that in the prison setting too. So society see parents as protectors. We imagine them shielding their kids at all costs. But what happens when a parent uses that very role, the role of caregiver, the role of nurturer, as a shield or a cover or even a weapon? So again, the Emmanuel Haro case is one of those heartbreaking reminders. What started as a mother claiming her baby was kidnapped, quickly unraveled into a narrative where the parents themselves became the suspects. All right, so Russ, the first thing I got is the power of the parental image. Society instinctively gives parents the benefit of the doubt, especially mothers. That's why I'm focusing on the mother today. Emotional appeals. My baby was taken. Look at the word my. Help me find my child grabs headlines, mobilizes communities, and draws instant sympathy. In Emmanuel's case, Rebecca Haro's tears and story initially positioned her as a victim before suspicion shifted. So, Russ, why do you think society is more likely to believe a parent's victim story, even when the details don't add up?
I think that it's largely because most people can project themselves from that role of a parent into that parental role that's more maternal. And there's a rarity in those cases, actually, where mothers, hurt or harm or kill their children. That just doesn't add up. It's something that no amount of empathy can put you into the shoes to understand how that happens. It's something totally alien, abhorrent, and completely contradictory towards societal norms. And so that's just, the impossibility of it makes sense to most people.
Yeah, and I think what's unique today, me and my wife woke up a little early today and we were watching a special on Lorie Valow. I'm trying to catch up. It's an older case, a couple of years old, but basically there's a few murders involved there, but two were children. One was her daughter and one was a child that she adopted. And even though we watched it and even though she's been convicted, my wife still kind of refuses to believe that someone would do this. And I'm like, it's funny that you're saying that. It's not that you refuse to believe that Lorie Valow would do this, or if you or in this case here, Rebecca Haro. I think you refuse to believe that a mother would do this. Does that make sense for us?
Yeah, and that's one thing why I focused on the maternal side of the equation. I don't know how this is likely to turn out since two arrests were made, but it certainly seems like at least at some level, from what we know so far, and based on the fact that there's been two arrests, and the fact that she was the initial point of contact for statements that were given, that they must have felt that she had something more to do with it than she was letting on, and something not born out of fear or born out of something else, but born out of criminal complicity. So I think that that's where they're going with this. It certainly seems like this is a worst case scenario. And I think that that's the really hard thing to take in this, is that it's almost certainly a worst case scenario.
Yeah, and when I think of mother, guys, I think of someone who's loving, who's nurturing, all the good qualities that make up someone who's going to raise you into being the man or woman that you need to be. But sadly, there are some people who think of mother as just a function. And at any point, they can turn that on or off. It's just a label to them. They can turn that on or off. Guys, that's how cold-hearted these individuals could be sometimes. I've worked in prisons. Russ has worked in prisons. I've worked in female prisons. So I have seen that side of individuals that will play the mother card to get what they want, to play their little game, but they also know how to they also know how to play. I'm saying, but they also know how to turn it off too pretty well But again, they try to kind of, it's like the mother's side is the performative side, and I guess me and Russ kind of, we're able to observe inmates. So we kind of know when it's performative because we see them when the mask falls off. So again, I think here for someone like this, it's hard for us to believe because we're connected to that label of mother that defines, I said, nurturing, loving, all the good things that you'd expect a mother to do. And then the problem is it's hard for us to want to call somebody out on that because we're more concerned what about if we're wrong? How could I even think about saying that a mother would do that? So you wind up just kind of backing away from it and accepting the fact that even if her story doesn't make sense, you start to give excuses as to why it doesn't make sense. And probably similar to what Russ said, you start to kind of project yourself onto her. I would be making those same mistakes too if someone took my child. Maybe I would get my story really mixed up if somebody took my child. I mean, you wind up starting to feel the pain as if, well, that was your child that was taken. But the funny thing is, and it's true, and Russ has said this before, you can't project your feelings or how you see the world or how you define certain roles. I'm not going to say functions, but certain roles onto someone who doesn't see the world the way you see it and will never see the world the way you see it. Is that true, Russ?
Yeah, I think that, there's a lot to be said for that is people get blindsided and can become complacent, as I've mentioned in my book, due to the inability to understand the mental mindset of someone else. Just because you would never do A, B, and C doesn't mean another person would even think twice about doing A, B, and C. And so if you're really bad, a lot of people don't want to believe that they're bad at understanding the motives of other people, but they often are. And so with that being said, yeah, it's almost a given that we believe someone else in a situation like this because we can't see ourselves doing it.
Yeah, it's like the stranger makes better sense. And I've worked with, or I know officers who have had to confront people on these types of cases, and they say it's hard because even when the evidence starts pointing in that direction, not only do they not want to believe it, because again, like Russ said and I said, they kind of project themselves into that individual, but they get uncomfortable about having to call them out on it. That's why good officers or good detectives are objective. They're not being cold. Some people say, wow, how could you accuse the mother? Well, the detective's not being cold, but that's their job. If the evidence is pointing to this direction, then the officer is going to have to get ready to prepare himself and address the mother or the father that there's a chance that they could have killed their kid. And sadly, I've seen it where I had Joe Pangaro on my show a while ago, and there are times where the officer could be wrong. The detective could be wrong. But they have to do it. It's like, you know what? We have to give it a shot. We got to weed this person out. So again, it's something I have to get done. And it's extremely hard because again, you relate to how you feel that mother should be. And at the end of the day, that parent or that mother may not be who you think they are. So number 2, Russ, the flip parent as a suspect. So the shock intensifies when parents, once the face of the victim campaign, becomes the accused. In the Haro case, turned suddenly, police shifting from searching for a stranger abductor to examining the family itself. The flip creates media whiplash, public betrayal, and anger, amplifying stigma once the truth emerges. So, Russ, what makes the betrayal feel deeper when the harm comes from a parent rather than a stranger?
Well, it's one of those things where the defined role, becomes the antithetical defined role, if you will, where it's, done a complete 180, turn from that thing. Parents are supposed to be protectors. They're supposed to be nurturers. They're supposed to be teachers. They're supposed to be defenders. They're supposed to be advocates for the children. And when those things are all, stood on their head, and instead the parent becomes the person that is doing the harm, getting away with the harm, and then engaging in whatever type of nefarious activity this was. It's just really, gosh, what's the word I'm searching for? It's just so not only abhorrent, but not even comprehensible. It becomes incomprehensible to most people because, most people, they spend some time, as a parent and doing those things. And, some of them are great parents, some are mediocre, some are bad, but very few of them ever drop to that level. And so it's one of those things where it's just a person can't even begin to put that scenario together in their head. And so they want to believe something that sounds more believable, a stranger abduction, for whatever reason. And in this case, from what's been said, apparently there is some type of video from near wherever that store was. And I think that that's probably going to be the genesis of the reason that they arrested both of them. But we'll see.
Yeah, they also, I believe, found some DNA and stuff at the house, the dumpster, a bunch of things. And I want to mention something, too. I know a lot of people that follow cases like this at the very beginning when they think that they're going to be helping the family. And then when they find out the family's behind it, in this case here, the mother and father, but I'm more focused on the mother right now, they stop watching the case because this isn't a world that they want to admit exists. I agree with that. I think a lot of times the interest will be at the very beginning. I want to help this family. I want to help this family. Let's do what we can. And then the moment you find out when it's the mother or father, or if it's both is a big thing, because if it's one parent, then maybe I can help the other. But when it's both, a lot of people will just say, you know what, I'm not, I'm just going to turn this off because I don't even want to think that this type of world exists. As I said earlier in the show, with me and my wife, when we were watching the Lorie Valow case, I mean, once, it gets past that point where we know she's done it, as I said, the wife still refuses to believe it because, one, the mother role, but two, in her mind, that world doesn't exist or shouldn't exist. So this kind of forces people to face reality. This is reality. And this is really how the world exists. And the sad thing is, working in the prison system, we know that reality. We walk in that reality every day. You don't have to remind us that this world exists because we work in it day by day. And I think sometimes that's why when we in corrections hang out with people just that kind of never worked on this side of the wall, a lot of people may not want to talk to us and hear about our stories or the people we meet because they don't want to think that side exists. That side's safely in there. And if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Then all of a sudden you come in, say you work in corrections, and you're a reminder of everything they fear. And the funny thing is, it's not even so much about fearing killers or rapists. It's fearing the fact that people can live in a way that there's no human connection, that there's people out there that have no empathy. So even like, as I said, with my wife, it's a fear that a mother could do this. Why? Because it's her son, or it's her daughter. How could a mother do this? So I guess, when you work in corrections, I don't want to say it's an accepted way of life, but it's a life that you're aware of. Hey, Russ, anything on that before we get to number 3?
Yeah, I think people, at that point, there's a tendency to shut down. There's no living person really to be sad for. I know that the child might have grandparents or something like that, but for the most part, is there's no mother to be sad for. There's no father to be sad for, and the child, for as far as we understand, the worst is feared. And so at that point, there's no one to root for. There's no one to hope that there's a happy ending for. There's no one that you can even think about, even though you wouldn't actually do this, but there's nobody to console under those circumstances. So I think that that's the reason why people can become shocked and horrified once this type of thing is revealed.
Yeah, and I think people consider it a betrayal because I believe it's an invested belief. So when someone kind of shifts that belief or totally shatters it, it does count as a betrayal. It counts as like a total shock to everything that you believe in. All right, number 3 I got, Russ, is I wanted to talk briefly about the prison reality of baby killers. Again, I'm not going to go talk about men real quick. We could do that at another show if it's requested. Right now, I just want to focus on I thought would be the mother would be the better interest here, or females in general. So I go inside prison. Crimes against children carry the harshest stigma. We already know that. Female baby killers often face severe threats and are usually placed in protective custody. I disagree with that. Someone quoted that, and I want to challenge it. I have that highlighted as a quick challenge. So I worked in a female facility, and that's not the case. And actually, the funny thing is, they fit very well in generalized population, to be honest with you, because there are going to be a lot of other females that probably have done similar crimes. And also, and if this makes any sense, from a grown man to a child, that's a big jump. From a mother to a child, still not accepted, but it's not that big of a jump. So I wanted to highlight that because I was watching something and the person said female baby killers often face severe threats and are usually placed in protective custody. That's not my experience. I don't know if that's somebody else's experiences, but that's not my experience. As I said, I believe they fit very well because a lot of them also play the game. And this actually may go into Section 4. So just briefly, a lot of them may also play the game postpartum depression. They'll play a lot of things that can draw sympathy. And then they just play it out. So I don't, when that was said, I totally disagree with that statement. And then I also got staff may also feel this emotional weight. Many are parents themselves, and professionalism gets tested by their disgust. Now, Russ, how do you think officers can keep professionalism when their instincts scream to treat these inmates with contempt?
Well, I think that most officers, operate on a series of principles where they go in there, and there are certain things that you're required to do for each and every individual. You have to keep them safe. You have to react if they're being harmed. You have to, you have to give them what they have coming, and that's 3 meals, a place to sleep, clean laundry, and you are responsible for doing those things. What you're not required to do is you're not required to go above and beyond that. And so there is a standard of care, and there is a standard of what we have to do. And anything beyond that is something that even for the best inmate, I don't think that we make much effort above and beyond that for anyone, because we want to be fair and impartial, and be able to have that professional cloak around us that helps protect us from those things. That doesn't mean that stray thoughts may not wander in. I've been certainly guilty of that myself on a lot of occasions. But truthfully, is you're not there to be God's avenger. You're not there to do anything but what your job demands of you. And so I think that most officers operate, according to that. I will say that, I've seen people that they start to lose it, not with respect to a particular crime or a particular instance, but they just start thinking that, they're there to play every end against every middle, and to make life miserable for people. And that's simply not the case. Those people are dealt with, and they either have to find a better way or find the highway.
Yeah, I say, same thing as Russ is saying. You have to kind of learn to separate the person from what they've done. I mean, when I was a rookie, you get very fascinated by not just what they've done, but how they've done it. And it does run thin, eventually. But I would say be very careful with that. The how behind the crime is really what affects your perspective of an individual. Because, again, you're working in a prison system. Okay, this, I got murderers here. I got rapists here. When I worked at a female facility, yes, I had women that attacked their children, abused their children, killed their children. I mean, but it gets a little tough to deal with when you want to start weeding into the how, when you're going in on Google and Googling up their specific crime, or, if you get a hold of their file, you're looking at their judgment of conviction, their PSI, their pre-sentence reports. It's you got to be very wary of that, because it's the how of what they do is extremely disturbing. Even when you watch something on the news and you see a case, they'll tell you maybe briefly, this person killed 4 individuals, maybe he stabbed them. But now imagine being, there at the crime scene, seeing everything and seeing what they've really done. Oh, I know this person raped a child, and then all of a sudden you read how they raped the child. There's a very big difference. So I would just say, in this case here, you got to be able to safely compartmentalize that you're dealing with the person, and what they've done is something else. And it's sad, because even you get in the comments here, oh, screw all baby killers. Well, okay, that's great. And maybe we have that mindset to some extent, but we can't let it affect our job. And that's the key. That's what makes our job hard. So I got the next one, Russ. Manipulation behind the mask. So parents who harm children may continue playing the victim role in prison. I was focusing more on the mother here, so let's say Rebecca. They may use narratives like postpartum depression, abusive partners, or emotional breakdowns to gain sympathy. Sometimes the evidence is against them, so what they do is they play into the narrative. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say I didn't do it, but I know I have ways to say that, maybe I'm a victim too. So yes, I may have killed the child, but I suffered from postpartum depression. And a lot of the women will connect to that. A lot of them won't want to call them out on that either. Sometimes valid mental health struggles are present, but staff must guard against being manipulated. And I'll get to that real quick. Hold on. And the Haro case shows how a maternal role can serve as a mask, even as suspicion grows. Remember, guys, we have mental health that does deal with these inmates. And if, eventually you always got prepared inmate for release, even if they're never getting out. You still have to prepare them for release. You still got to get that mindset right. All those things that could make the person productive if they ever did get released, because you never know. Things could overturn, and someone that has no parole now has parole, or whatever it is. Things change. So with that said, one big thing that we push when it comes to rehabilitation is ownership. And ownership means there is no blame. It's straight up ownership. So if you got someone that killed a child and their whole time they're in prison, or their whole case was, yeah, I did it because of postpartum, and mental health sitting there like, yeah, that's not the case. The person doesn't suffer from postpartum, never did, blah, blah, blah. Even when they're up for parole, no one wants to hear that. It's like, okay, you're done. Yeah, no, you killed the kid. You did not have postpartum. And eventually they're going to push for an honest level of ownership, and not another way to push it out to blame, because there's no responsibility when you're saying, well, I did it because I was sick or I was suffering. Because now the person that's the victim, who deserves the sympathy, you're now taking it away. Because by the moment you say I suffer from postpartum, where's the sympathy go? It no longer goes to the child who deserves it. It now goes to you, who selfishly took that child away. Now, Russ, where's the line between empathy for mental health and vigilance against manipulation?
I would say with regards to that, you always have to know that anytime someone is telling you something that's of an emotional nature, that there's a potential for it to be exploited in a way that becomes manipulative. So professionals that are looking at it, from the mental health component side, they should already know that. From the custodial side, we should already know that. You just have to be on guard with regards to why you're being told this story. And I would even say is that's not part of your job either. If you're on the mental health side, it is, but otherwise, it's time for them to put a pin in it and hold on. What are we really talking about here? And get back to whatever the central part of your duties require, and not things outside. Because they will tell you a story, and the waterworks will come on, and they will try to get you to do XYZ, and so you have to be on guard for that, unless they truly are entitled to XYZ. And in that case, you've just gone in a big circle for no reason.
And now I got one more. We kind of discussed this in other shows, but we'll revisit it again. And I will mention something. I just got done also watching a Prime special of the Idaho killings. It was a 4-part series about the murders in Ohio, Brian Kohlberger, whatever. And they really attacked the media, social media. They attack people that do true crime stuff because, again, it just puts attention when they're trying to grieve or they're trying to figure things out. And so it kind of crosses into this last part again, public perception versus institutional management. Media often frames these inmates as monsters or broken souls, shaping how the public views their punishment. So remember, the media is painting a picture that now we have to manage. Correctional staff, meanwhile, have to deal with the practical, which is the housing, safety, and policy. And by the way, me and Russ discussed this before because Russ even dealt with the Night Stalker, Ramirez. The public paints the monster, and then what we wind up seeing is someone that it really is just not even a shadow of that monster. They're just blah. The media puts so much on them that I think they also. I mean, so I understand you want to showcase awareness, but sometimes they paint the monster where awareness becomes fear. And I think that's where it becomes a concern, especially when obviously to the public on the outside, but also to us on the inside. And then institutions must manage both the inmate's reality and the outside world's judgment, knowing every decision may be scrutinized. So, Russ, do you think media portrayal makes it harder or easier for prisons to manage notorious baby killer inmates?
I think that the media does a fantastic job with regards to every single thing. No, I'm just kidding. The media, by and large, is crap. The media, by and large, is stupid. The media does what it does to sell ad revenue, to sell newspapers, as if there's such a thing anymore, to get clicks and to try and attach themselves to something that will get them more revenue, and that's all they're there for. They are not there to examine anything, in a meaningful, constructive way at all. They never do. I've never seen them do anything in that manner with regards to corrections or real crime or any of that. And so I'm very jaded about the way they portray each thing and everything, because it's not just portraying Richard Ramirez, for instance, as a monster, but portraying him then too as someone to be feared, but someone to be thrilled with, so that he gets a bunch of groupies and a bunch of attention and a bunch of things going on that really have no bearing to reality. I had there's dozens of guys like him. You Richard Ramirez, you had the dating game killer, you had, and just the list goes on and on. And so they stop calling them by their names. They make up something that sounds cool: the Night Stalker, the dating game killer, the freeway killers, and it just goes on and on and on, so that they can make more money. And so everything and anything that journalists do is predicated on that, and not on actually telling any truth, because the truth doesn't get you as many clicks.
Yeah, and guys, by the way, I'm watching the Lorie Valow case. She was being interviewed by someone from the Idaho media, and basically she called them out on it. She basically said, "You're kind of connecting to my story, so you could make yourself a little famous." In the end, sadly, but it's true. They may chase after things in an effort to be the first one to break the story. And sometimes they run with the smallest of things, but those smallest of things bring attention. And now some of us have to manage that. For us, it'll be, how do we manage this guy in the inmate? How do we manage the inmate in prison? But for victims who've been affected, he's back in the news again, just when we're trying to get over it. Now it's come back. I mean, the one guy in the Prime Video series I watched, he had to delete all his news apps because he's trying to go ahead and live his life and breaking news over every little thing about Brian Kohlberger, and he just could not find himself getting away from it because it kept on being pushed out there. And even us, sometimes we're guilty of it too. But the reason why we may push it out there is because there's a perspective that's out there that just doesn't resonate. And now we're back out there trying to say, hey, guys, this is how it should be, how it looked, because some of the information going out there is coming from people that really don't have that information to give. We always stay within our wheelhouse, but most of the time we cover stuff, it's because we're trying to create a different perspective and hopefully a more honest and truthful perspective. But I mean, it would be great that we all could try to work with the media to bring about awareness safely. I mean, I get everybody wants transparency, but transparency isn't always right now. It could be just a bit later. Just hold on, wait. I mean, sometimes you got to get everything together first before you release something. I know it may sound crazy, but if I'm in the prison, let's say I'm administration, and I have a major code that happens, and the person calls me within the first minute of that code going off, and he starts telling me all the information. And then 2 minutes later, he's got to change everything. And then 2 minutes later, he calls me back, he's got to change everything. I'd rather just say, do me a favor. There's not a rush here. Take your time, get everything together, get the facts straight, do what you got to do. Then call me back when we're ready to go forward. Because at the end of the day, you're pushing it out too quick. And the problem is my narrative keeps on changing. Now, whoever I got to call, which let's say in this case for the metaphor would be the public is already getting this mixed story. And I'm going to tell you something right now, and this is truthful. The story that goes out there first will be the story that people believe, because anything that comes out after that has to go against the obstacle of what was already put out there first. That's why a lot of people continue to play into that first story, even though they know it's false, because they know they already got buy-in and they're going to keep on running with it until they can't run with it. And then when they're wrong, they're just saying, hey, guess what? We're sorry. We've been running this for a while, but it looks like the case has taken a wild turn. No, it didn't. You ran the story too quick. It didn't take a wild turn. You ran the story before it was ready to be ran, and you were wrong. So a wild turn is usually them saying they probably misinformed the public. I think that's just a way of creating a narrative. Hey, Russ, anything you'd like to say in closing, sir?
Just want to say that I hope that people found this helpful or instructional, or just being able to understand things from a lot of different perspectives. And just the fact that, we've dealt with so many people like these individuals, over time, that we kind of have a little bit more insight maybe to it. So anyway, hope everyone out there will have a good evening and a great weekend, and we will see you on the next installment of Tier Talk.
Yeah, guys, please make some more suggestions. The channel is doing pretty well, getting some interaction, which is great. Suggest some stuff, or if it's older cases, we'll try to go ahead and put something together as long as it falls within our areas of expertise. As I mentioned, we may not cover every bit of breaking news or piece by piece that as it goes, but if we find something that we can hold on to, we'll try to give you guys something that we feel has value. As always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. Stay safe.